What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. So we have some more perspectives on Aaron Glenn potentially becoming a first-time head coach for the New York Jets. And I think it's important. I try to share as much of this stuff as I can over the last week or two here because anybody and everybody that's had a connection with Aaron Glenn seems like they want to step up. And it's almost overwhelmingly positive, right? The only negatives I really heard anybody bring up is the fact that, well, two things. One, what kind of staff specifically to the offense can he realistically build that would make us comfortable? And two, simply he doesn't have head coach experience, which isn't necessarily his fault, right? So we have Hall of Famer Drew Brees and one of the greatest running backs to ever touch the field in Reggie Bush that spoke up to speak about what makes Aaron Glenn special, why they feel like he could succeed. And this was from the standpoint of him becoming the next head coach for the New Orleans Saints. But I think it's a bit of an apples to apples comparison, right? Effectively, Drew Brees was mentioning that New Orleans is a football type city, and so there's a certain mentality, there's a certain discipline, a certain attitude, a certain aggression, even if you will, that you need to have in order to succeed, thrive, in most cases even just survive in those kind of markets. And I think all of those same traits, maybe to another degree, apply in New York / New Jersey when you're a New York Jet. So let's hear some of the comments here. Again, this one coming specifically from Drew Brees. And this is intriguing to me because also he's known him in different capacities. He's been a former competitor for him when they matched up against each other. They've also been a teammate for a year. And then he's got to see him as a coach for the New Orleans Saints as well when he was the DB coach. So he says the first guy who comes to mind is Aaron Glenn, arguably one of the greatest defensive backs to ever play the game. I played against him. I was a teammate of his too. He's a leader of men. He garners a ton of respect. He knows the game. He is highly competitive. And again, what the rest of his interview realistically goes on to just kind of mention what it takes to survive and succeed in New Orleans. And then, of course, some other head coach options, if not Aaron Glenn. But to hear Drew Brees, one of the greatest leaders of men, I mean, he quite literally has, it feels like TED Talks just for his ability to motivate guys on the field and in the huddles. And I remember searching up a lot of, I can't remember what I was typing into YouTube, but I remember looking up like motivational speeches and Drew Brees' stuff popping up. So, I think that military background comes into play and all that kind of stuff as well. But it's intriguing to me when you have a quarterback that can speak to a defensive-minded guy, right? Because, one, you would love to see somebody who, again, is a specialist in what you do. So the fact that you have, and I'm trying to remember who it is. They have Clint Kubiak, which I think was his second highest guy, who's already on the Saints staff, by the way, as potentially their next head coach option as well. Clint Kubiak, if I'm recalling it correctly, is an offensive guy. So to stack him above even Clint is huge, right? So I kind of want to, this goes smoothly into Reggie Bush's comments as well, right? So again, keep in mind from his perspective, also a former teammate here. He mentions in regard to the job that specifically this year Aaron Glenn's been able to pull off. But it's not like this has just been a one-year type situation for him as well. When you talk about the injuries, the multitude of injuries, the severity of them, and then, of course, just I mentioned this before, he could technically win I forget what they call it, Associate Coach Award, whatever it ends up being. Not Coach of the Year, but I think they give one to, like, coordinators, right? So he mentions you find the real coaching when you start to lose good players. And he was mentioning in this quote, in relation to when everything's at its best, fully healthy roster, star players that may have already been established or you've been developing for some years. that is a completely different situation than mid-season. You've lost a key guy maybe at every level of the field, and suddenly you don't feel like you can run things the same way you expected to at the beginning of the year, right? Can you pivot? Can you change your defense around what you still have within the building, right? Because part of building the team is not only hoping you find those star-studded guys, but the depth is always so huge. Are you getting guys with a multitude of skill sets that can cover and kind of mitigate and minimize the damage that may happen when you do lose some of these star guys, right? Obviously, you're not expecting somebody to go out and replace what Aiden Hutchinson can do, but can you find a collaborative unit of guys behind him that can maybe make that up in totality, right? He also goes on to say he's a guy that will command respect in the locker room as well. Though guys will know that he's not only a coach, but he's a guy who's played too. And this has been this way for, probably a decade plus now. I would imagine even longer, but, you're just really starting to see a ton of players try to get into the coaching ranks. But from a player standpoint, it's what makes somebody like Deion Sanders so impressive in the college ranks, right? Not only can he speak to you from a coaching standpoint and give you a full breakdown, here's how I evaluate you, here's where I see your ceiling at, here's how I feel we can get you to that pathway as long as you're disciplined, you're doing the work, etc. But then he can also relate to you when it comes to the struggles you'll be dealing with, right? What does it feel like to be a former first-round pick? What does it feel like to play for the New York Jets? What are the expectations of playing here, right? How do I go about handling money? Where's the best place to, try to live in the city from a logistics standpoint, makes it more effective to be able to work out at the facilities and do what I need to do, stay out of trouble, etc., etc., etc. He should have a lot of tricks in his bag, a lot of life experience, a lot of examples that Aaron Glenn can give to these guys. And so when you start to see, especially this season, some things maybe go off the realms, right? You have Garrett Wilson, who's been, I won't say a diva, but there's been plenty of hothead moments, and rightfully so, because the offense has just been so piss poor for so long. You have Breece Hall. Nobody really understands, and I don't go to injury as even the first thing here, because it didn't seem like he had anything that was overwhelmingly impacting him for the majority of the season, but mentally, he just kind of felt like he was checked out long before we were even mathematically eliminated, right? So you weren't seeing as much of creative running ability, as much determination, as much tackle breaking ability, elusiveness. The lightning really felt like it was missing from Breece this year. And so you would imagine a lot of that was from a mental standpoint, right? You have Sauce Gardner, and obviously he's dealing with even more stuff, right? A lawsuit coming out for nonsense. But even he's had a step back. Aaron Glenn should be able to, Quincy. Quincy was a guy who felt like he was, one of the better ones, elite linebackers for, let's say, 12 weeks of the season. And then at some point this last quarter or so, felt like he really started to trail off. Quentin Williams, probably still top 3, top 7 play as a defensive tackle, but all of these guys with these expectations, with the developmental leaps that we've seen from him and things, Jermaine Johnson, another one that's going to be coming back from injury. These are all guys that I think Aaron Glenn can tap into, pull from the side and say, we got everything we need right here, right? And this is how, with the plan in place that we're going to be installing, with the new guys we'll be bringing in, etc., to help fill out some of the areas of need. Don't worry about performance. I'm going to get you guys set. And even offensively, I think he'll have that same level of impact. So, just curious. Let me know what you guys think. I think it is, again, pivotal here that this is really the first comments I'm hearing from some offensive-minded guys. And to see them clamoring around Aaron Glenn as well, I think is huge. So, let me know what you guys think. Keep in mind, I did just drop the Mike Vrabel video earlier, so if you guys haven't seen that, I say that to say, not necessarily to go watch it, but we're already down to top option, right? So when you talk about Aaron Glenn being one of the top candidates now, between maybe him and Brian Flores as the top 2 guys, these little bit of things are what's going to push him over the edge, right? In comparison to Brian Flores, where
and I've chatted with you guys in the comments about some of this, he's kind of feeling like he's on a downtrend. His resume, his experience, his ability to actually do the coaching job may say that he's the more qualified candidate, but there's something to say, about this Keith Carter effect where you're seeing tons of players come out and speak to the environment, the working relationships that he built, or maybe destroyed is a better way to put it. And you're having guys come out and say, he wasn't that great of a coach for us. We didn't like the way we had to play, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things about, because I'm a guy that loves hard coaching too, right? I don't necessarily worry about the discipline aspect and all that kind of stuff, but if you aren't Bill Belichick level successful, or maybe even Mike Vrabel to that standpoint, which also I wouldn't say is overwhelmingly successful, if you're not at that Bill Belichick level, that Sean Payton type level, you can't really have those kind of situations occurring for yourself until you've bought that much credibility. So we'll end it there. Before we get off the soapbox, let me know what you guys think. Again, you guys know how I feel about Aaron Glenn. So I'll catch you guys again. Peace.